Well, my full name is William Henry Frick, but I get Bill sometimes, but most of the time I get Whitey.
Whitey.
Yeah, I picked that nickname up. I was playing Bantam goal one night, and it was a preliminary to a senior game, and I was out in the net there, and Rex Steinbers, who was broadcasting the game, he yelled down on the bench, he says, "Who's that white-haired kid in the net?" Since that night, I've got Whitey as a nickname. I currently live in St. Catharines, and started lacrosse right here in St. Catharines. I was only 10 years old when we moved from Peterborough, and possibly only saw a couple of senior B lacrosse games while living in Peterborough. But we moved here and got into lacrosse right away. Well, we moved here, we moved to West St. Catharines, and a neighbor by the name of Jimmy Joy, who's well known in St. Catharines for his training of all the teams and that, he came over one day and asked my brother and I, would we be interested in playing lacrosse? So we said, well, yeah, we'll give it a go, and we both made the Bantam team. I was 1938, so I'd be 11 years old. Well, I'm married to my wife, Lorna. We have one daughter, Jill, and she has a daughter, Jennifer. And although they're not involved with lacrosse at all, Jill is really involved with hockey in Niagara Falls. But she took hockey over lacrosse. And my dad, he was connected with lacrosse with the Shamrocks Junior A team in West St. Catharines. And then he moved on as president of St. Catharines Junior Athletics. Actually, it was that lacrosse game at Peterborough. Her girlfriend and her girlfriend had a crush on Bobby Thorpe, who Bobby was a great lacrosse player. He went to Peterborough, and he coached Peterborough for several years after. And they went down there to Peterborough for the weekend, and we went out after, and I met Lorna. I was very fortunate. I didn't get along with school too well, so I left high school at an early age, and I got a job at Conroy Manufacturing Company in St. Catharines, where I got a job in their tool room. And I served my apprenticeship in there, and I worked there for 6 years before going to General Motors, which then was McKinnon Industries. And I got a job there in a pattern shop, and I eventually worked into being a pattern maker, and I retired from there in 1986. Well, as I said, I mentioned playing junior Bantam lacrosse in Western Hill as a goaltender. And then the family moved to the north end of St. Catharines, and my brother and I, we joined the Tecumseh organization, where we played midget lacrosse, midget and juvenile. And then the Tecumseh organization didn't have a junior team, so when we went to junior, we played for junior athletics. Then after that, I played senior. Actually, I was playing junior and senior at the same time, just to back up in senior to the great Bill Whitaker. It was 1 year, 1949, I went to Peterborough. I played for their first senior A team in Peterborough in 1949. So I coached the Bantam team for a couple of years, but just for a couple. But after I got married, I moved to Thorold for 4 years, and I was out of lacrosse for 4 years. And I didn't have a car then, and the lacrosse ball was too far away. Oh, I have a lot, but it's just a lot of memorable moments where playing, although I didn't play much, just being on the bench with some great lacrosse players that were my heroes growing up in lacrosse. Well, there's Bill Whitaker and Joe Cheevers, which a lot of you know what, Jerry played hockey for Boston. And these fellows all had a skill of their own. Cheevers was probably the best centerman around in Ontario, and Whitaker goaltender, along with Mortimer and Mimico, if you remember that name. Now that's that. And then playing in the Minto Cup team in the senior Mann Cup. And then carrying on refereeing, like such as Mann Cup, Minto Cup games. And I refereed the very first Canada Summer Games in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Then doing I refereed the whole 6 games of Mann Cup series in Cornwall between St. Catharines and New Westminster Carlings. I mentioned refereeing the Mann Cup series in Cornwall in 1963. That's Gord Hammond. A fellow by the name of Boyd Bockwell. He was from Morelia. He refereed the first 4 games, but he had a work commitment. He had to leave. So they brought in Gord Hammond to as it turned out to be the final 2 games. I was there for the whole 6, which I felt really great doing. Outside the game of lacrosse, boy, I've had a lot of good ones. Being married to a nice wife and having a nice home and outside of lacrosse, I played junior A hockey, and I've spent 1 year in Scotland playing ice hockey. And I've had a lot of good achievements, just far too many to remember. That's just a scroll from the Ontario Lacrosse Association, the Ontario Lacrosse Hall of Fame, which was inducted in 1997. Another great moment of mine was being inducted in the Canadian in 1999. Great goalie.
Yeah, you were a goalie, right?
Well, that's why I wasn't too good at either. Because 1 year I played goal, another year I'd be a forward.
Oh, you played both? I didn't
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like some games I played senior forward.
Yeah.
The games I didn't play goal. I played every position.
Wow.
But that's the team of the junior 1946 Junior Athletics. I'm in the middle here because I played goal the whole year there. In the following year, 1947, I was a forward on the Minto Cup team. Yeah, I used, in fact, my goal stick I used in Peterborough, they've got done in the museum here. And it wasn't much wider. It was all leather, of course. And I noticed the other night watching the Mann Cup game, the goal stick that Matt Vince had, it's way up behind here, the handle had to be that long.
Yes.
I had just like that,
Sure,
so I could hold it like this.
Oh, okay.
But now they want it long so they can stand up and block it. That's something I'm really proud of too, although as a backup goaltender too. This is 1946 Mann Cup played in Maple Leaf Gardens. That's where this picture is taken, in Maple Leaf Gardens. And I was a backup, although I played junior in 46 as a goaltender. The regular not the regular, Bill Whitaker and Doug Favell, who just came back from the service, they were split as goaltending all year long. And Whitaker was under suspension by the CLA, so they asked me would I come and be the backup in the Mann Cup series. So I did. This one here, it's a picture. That's taken 1946, I believe, yeah, at an outdoor bowl. You see the stands behind?
Yeah.
There's stands in behind here, the players here, with people sitting, and you had your goal judge cage here. Now, in the senior games back in the late 30s and early 40s and all that, that bowl would be packed solid. I know it back then, my father would work till 5 o'clock at night. On the way home from work, he'd stop in at the Lacrosse Bowl and get his tickets for that game that night. And then he'd pack us kids into the car and away we'd go. Because I said this stand would be full, packed. This is the 1944 Mann Cup team there. I think the final game was played in Hamilton, the old Barton Street Arena. For some reason, the Maple Leaf Gardens was being used.
Right.
And the final game was in the old Barton Street Arena in Hamilton. While we're talking about crowds, I can remember back in the early days before I was playing senior that the Mann Cup was being played in Maple Leaf Gardens. Maybe it was just the first year I played senior. And they chartered a boat from Port Louisa here to Toronto. One of the boats that used to travel regular. Yeah. They chartered that, and that boat was full. This is a scroll I got that was presented to me from the St. Catharines Junior Lacrosse Association. And it's St. Catharines Rich in Lacrosse History, Player of the Decade. And I was chosen or picked Player of the Decade for the 1940s. probably for the being on the Minto Cup and the Mann Cups I was connected with, because I'm sure there's great lacrosse players back then. A great name was Roy Morton. Oh, he had one of the hardest shots in the league.
Is that right?
Recently, Matt Vint, who played pro for Rochester, and he played for Peterborough this year in the Mann Cup.
Yep.
Stevie Toll, he coached the St. Catharines junior team. Randy Marins, he's a great name in lacrosse. And Johnny Meridian, I think he's run lacrosse in the States, is he not? Doug Favell Jr., he played professional hockey and that. And Ronnie Roy, his name's well known around here.
Yeah.
And of course myself and Pung Morton. But there were former players that were picked player of the decade. So why I'm there, I don't really know. Because there's great lacrosse players.
Nice.
This is the scroll I got from the Premier of Nova Scotia for refereeing down there the very first Canada Summer Games, which St. Catharines are getting the Summer Games at the 1920, I believe. And I happily refereed the very first one. And you mentioned why I played goal and played forward different years. Well, that's our midget Tecumseh lacrosse team here. My brother and I played forward then. Well, the following year, 1943, and I was playing goal. And we saw where we had another goalie, capable goaltender. And the year, like the 1946, I played goal, regular.
Right.
Well, when I went up to 47, they had a young fellow, Ralph Speck, who turned out a real good goaltender. So I said, well, no, I'm going to come out, try forward. So I played forward all that year because we had Ralph in Peterborough.
Yeah.
And Ralph did end up in Peterborough playing. And then from there, he went to Fergus to play senior A lacrosse in Fergus. Every team seemed to have star players, 3 or 4 star players, eh? And playing outside in an outside bowl, that had a lot to do with the popularity of lacrosse.
Yes.
You take outside bowl a nice summer night, you had that crowd cheering. You didn't get an echo from inside. You had the crowd right there and all that. And it was good lacrosse, real good lacrosse. They didn't have that 30-second clock. And, well, for instance, St. Catharines had one player, Whitey McMahon. He's in the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame. And he could take that ball and rag it for a whole 2 minutes while they served a penalty. He just back and forth, back and forth. And anybody who really came at him, really check him hard, he'd just make a pass, then get the ball right back. But he could rag a ball for 2 minutes. And then Bill Whitaker, a lot of the goalies then used to travel up the floor quite a bit. They didn't have that big equipment on today because they played like this. Their stick did the stopping.
Yeah.
I'd say a great future for lacrosse. Although I'm not involved with minor, but I understand minor lacrosse is really growing. It's getting more popular.
Yeah.
Trouble is with lacrosse, it don't have the money behind it. Hockey and that has, and soccer. Like that last Mann Cup series in Peterborough. Although I did see the last game of the Mann Cup. It was on our local TV. It was a rerun. But if that could have, if the money was there to televise that whole series, it would have been a big boost for lacrosse. Because it's a good sport. I played a lot of hockey, but I prefer lacrosse. Just being a kid at the time, and most of those players came out of junior together. They played minor lacrosse, they came up through to junior together, and they went into senior. The whole team practically played all lacrosse for years together. They were skilled players, each player. Well, it's like success that Mimico had with the Gares and the Dixons.
Yeah.
And Mimico, they were just, I understand they played as a team all right up through. And Brampton was the same way in that. They would stick together. After practice, they'd go together and have the odd cola, you know, and have that. And after practice and that, and they just patted each other in the back. I think I am. I was very fortunate. It was during the war years. And as I said, in 1946, Doug Favell, who was a good minor lacrosse goaltender, he was away in the service. But when he came back in 46, that put him and Bill Whitaker together. So I back to play junior again as a goaltender. And then in 1947, I played as a forward on a Minto Cup team. The winter of 1948, I played hockey in Scotland. And I came back from Scotland. Peterborough was waiting for my release. And St. Catharines were holding up on it, I bet. But I did get to play 3 games here, and then they gave me my release. And I went to Peterborough. Well, I wanted to really, seeing being born there, and it was the first year for senior A lacrosse in Peterborough. Until then, it was only senior B. And I just, coming back from being a year in Scotland, I just still had that being on the move.
Sure.
Al was my brother, Al, a good lacrosse player. He was good. He could run, handle the ball, a good center man. He moved to Guelph, and I think that was his last lacrosse when he moved to Guelph. In fact, yeah, he worked for a trust company, and they didn't want him playing lacrosse. Yes. But Al was a good lacrosse player. He's in the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame, yes.
Wow, wow.
I had another brother, Don. He was a good lacrosse player too, excellent. But he went overseas. And during his heyday, would have been his heyday in lacrosse. And he'd come back and he did play senior, but he didn't stand out like he would have if he had played lacrosse all those years. Well, we thought it did, because the ball came towards the head, we ducked. And, when I was playing minor, I don't think I came up to the top of the goal post, you know. But no, that was equipment back then. When I played minor, I just had those soccer shin pads.
Wow, wow.
Then we went to junior. We put on what the catchers used to wear in baseball.
Yeah.
In that. And then they put the rule in about lacrosse helmet, and of course we had to start wearing it. Yes, I had a very big chest protector when I played junior because we used the one that seniors used. To me, it came way down below here. You know, it came down when I like this here.
Yeah.
It came way down below my knees. It helps up the ball, yes.
Yeah.
But we didn't wear helmets, didn't wear masks. Do you want a little story about the mask? When they first put the mask in, Bill Whitaker, they told him he had to wear a mask. And Bill said, no way am I going to wear a mask. Well, it's a rule, you have to wear a mask. So Bill goes out there with the mask on. The game starts, he puts the mask on top of his head. There was no rule, Satan, where he had to wear the mask. And if I remember correctly, he got away with that. Until after the next day or so, they were notified the mask had to be worn in front of the face. Let's say I've knocked silly a couple of times.
Wow, wow, yeah.
Yeah, I remember getting hit up in here a couple of times. Yeah. But back then, the fellow winding up, letting the ball go like they can today. Your stick was heavier and that there, you know, and you couldn't do it. But they were more or less picking spots.
Okay.
Back then, you know, they'd pick a spot. And of course, they'd pick it high because I was small.
Yeah.
And the other one would hit the head. Outside bowl on Drummond Street, which the bowl name was after, in Mimico. You'd go into the corner, and Mimico was good at this. You'd go into the corner, 2 fellows would dig for the ball. Mimico guy would just go like that, scoop a bit of dirt up in the opposition face because it was loose gravel or dirt on the floor. You know, I think if it was still played outdoors, you'd double your crowds anyways. No, I don't never remember complaining about it at all. I was just too darn glad to be in the nets, playing, you know, to do any complaining.
Like complain when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, you know.
That's right.
No, the lights never really bother me at all.
No, they didn't.
I've never heard of a goalie complaining really about the lights. Except, I talked about Bill Whitaker too. He was always doing something. I believe it was in Hamilton. That Mann Cup game I mentioned that played in Hamilton. There's a light right above him like that, right above him, and it shone right down on him. He asked about getting it out.
Yeah.
They just said they couldn't do it. The next ball he stopped like that, up like that, that light was out. And so that's some of the different things I saw in lacrosse, you know, character players and good players, yes. Well, out of town, I can remember a couple of good players. Roy Mortimer, both a goaltender, played for Mimico. He was an excellent goalie. And I can remember the Gare brothers, and the Dixon, Kenny, and I can't think of the other name. They were excellent. They were players that stood out that you recognized. And St. Catharines, as I mentioned, Bill Whitaker had to be one of the best, him along with Roy Mortimer, goalie in Canada. And Joe Cheevers had to be one of the best centermen. And as mentioned, Whitey McMahon ragging that ball. And a fellow by the name of Billy Fitzgerald. His father is in the Lacrosse Hall of Fame for playing field lacrosse, I believe. And Billy was just good at just carrying that ball, making plays and things like that. But just players like that, they stuck out. But no, lacrosse has been good to me. Well, it's what you put into a game too, you know. And I hope lacrosse can continue in St. Catharines. I understand they got a terrific, good team coming up for next year. Lacrosse has been real good to me. It did good to my family, my brothers, my dad, and that, you know. And it's a great game, and I hope it can get greater with the year coming, you know. But we got to find money to put into lacrosse.